So if you're familiar with the typical graphic settings within any game on Steam Deck, you'll notice that the resolution is often capped at a 1280 by 720 or 1280 by 800, which to most people probably doesn't matter, but to someone like me who is a bit of a graphics snob, that resolution can be kind of an eyesore in a lot of games. So today I'm going to walk you briefly through how to add essentially a custom resolution to your game. Something to note is it is on a per game basis as far as I know. Today we'll be looking at Hi-Fi Rush as an example. You go to the gear icon here, hit properties, go into the resolution drop down, and I'm going to pick 1920 by 1080. 1080p is probably a good amount of fidelity to push through this device. I think going 1440p or God forbid 4K is probably a bad idea. So I set up the performance overlay in the top to give us some perspective here. So first we're going to look at this 1280 by 800 kind of default resolution. As you can see, we do get 60 frames per second, which is nice. But if you pay attention to some of the detailed elements, like especially Chai's character model, it does get pretty pixelated and it's hard to make out the details of his face. And the game world around him just looks not that great. And again, to most people, this probably wouldn't bother them. Again, it's a handheld device, so pushing a bunch of fidelity out of it is probably asking too much. But we can see up in the right, we have an estimated battery life right now of about 2 hours and between 15 and 20 minutes. So if we switch over to 1920 by 1080, we can see there's a ton more detail popping through. We don't see as much pixelation on Chai's character model, and the world around just pops much better, obviously much more detailed. We do take a small hit on the frames. So we were pushing 60, a pretty stable 60 before. Now we're dipping into like the 44 to 45 range on average. But what's interesting is you can see in the top right with our battery life, it actually hasn't changed very much, if at all. I'm sure it will cut down in more, graphically intensive situations like a big fight or something, but doesn't seem to be that big of a trade-off if you don't mind losing some frames, which me personally, I don't mind. So what I actually use, I don't use either of these resolutions. I actually use this 1680 by 1050. And what's cool about this is you do get to keep the 16 by 10 aspect ratio that you actually lose with the 1920 by 1080 resolution. It pops into 16 by 9. So this 16 by 10, it fills up the whole screen. You still get a lot of detail, much more than the default resolution. And kind of same thing, battery life doesn't change very much. And we do still have a good amount of frames. So yeah, that about wraps it up for this brief guide. Feel free to subscribe for more.